All right. So this is our strategy workshop. We're gonna talk as much as we can about the strategy for this year's game and kind of what we've seen while going through the game manual. So I'm Rylee. I'm a senior this year. This is my 7th season with Broncbots. I'm our FRC team captain, and I've been doing FTC for, 7 years. So I know just a little bit about what I'm doing.
And my name is Dylan. This is also my 7th year in FTC, but I'm a mentor now. I was on the team for 5 years, from my 8th grade to my senior year. In the senior year, I was the senior leader on the team, and now I am the head programming mentor, along with, I like to think that I contribute a bit to the strategy of the team.
So this is that document I was talking about. Please feel free to scan that QR code, take a picture of it. It doesn't really matter how, just there's that. It's got kind of the general information about pregame, auto, match play, end game, and then kind of some of the general penalties that we think are going to be more prevalent. And it's just going to be a running document that you guys can see. We'll probably be adding more to it later during our personal team meeting. So you guys are more than welcome to use that as kind of a general document.
The other thing I recommend for all of you, especially if you're rookies and you haven't done this before, I recommend 2 things. One is read the 1-pager that's on the website. And the second is read the game manual front to back, because little things will jump out at you that'll be incredibly helpful and really help you understand the game. There's nothing worse than showing up to your first competition and realizing you got something wrong. So with that said,
can everyone see the new screen?
Let's put the Zoom back up. Okay. All right. We have a chat and participants as well.
I'm working on it. Okay. Just give me a second, y'all, to get myself situated. All right. Okay. So you'll notice that I actually have the, this is the traditional event manual in front of me. So just keep that in mind, take that with a grain of salt, because it is probably going to be a little bit different, but it should be close enough. So if you guys want to follow along, you guys are more than welcome to. I'm on page 13, which in the actual document is, wow, actually page 13. First never does that. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the gameplay section.
Awesome. Yeah, sure, I can talk. So actually, Rylee, can we also bring up our document on the other side?
Instead of...
Or maybe just up on the screen so I can see it. It doesn't have to be on the screen share. Yeah. Since they all have access to it. Okay, awesome. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is gameplay, and specifically pre-match. So, one thing that I thought was interesting is that there's a lot of moving pieces to setting up your robot this year, a lot more than normal. Previously, since I've been doing FTC, sometimes it's start on the wall, sometimes it's just start on one side of the field. But this year we have, I believe, it's 3 stipulations. You have start on the wall, 4, just kidding. Start on the wall, start on the starting line, and I believe that just means you have to be touching the starting line. And you have to be touching one of the wobble goals. Then the 4th thing is optional, but you can preload up to 3 rings in your robot. Now, you're only allowed to hold 3, so that'll probably be the maximum storage on your robot.
Yeah. I just want to apologize for my atrocious handwriting. I have a drawing pad, but it's like really hard to write on this thing, so it's kind of ugly. I do want to point out everything that I'm writing here is just it's basically just a shortened version of what is in that strategy document that I shared earlier. If any of you guys need the link to that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send that in the chat. So that you guys could open that as well. Please, please, please save this, and you guys are more than welcome to copy it and then edit it for yourselves. Whatever you guys want to do with it, it's really, this is what I would do for my team and for myself, so I'm going to make it accessible to you guys as well. You can't edit this one, but you can edit, if you were to make a copy or copy and paste it somewhere, you can edit it yourself.
Can you undo the thing there? Thank you. Awesome. So let's see. That's almost everything for the pre-match. And then in case y'all either didn't see the video or you're still a little bit confused, the past couple of years, they've been doing this thing where they will have you initialize your autonomous but not run it. And then they'll have you, and then they will do the randomization on the field. So your autonomous, if you're going to be using the randomization, which is the number of rings on the field, then that is, your autonomous has to be able to figure that out on its own, basically, as opposed to you automatically selecting it or anything like that. So what that means is, from a programming perspective, if that's something you're interested in doing, and obviously the number of rings determines where you should put your wobble goal, I believe. Is that what it is, Rylee?
Yes. So there's 0, 1, or 4.
Yeah. And the thing about that right there is I'm not exactly sure how we're going to go about sensing all those rings yet.
Well, I think it's such a big difference so that it's easier, at least.
So I know that some people, like, for example, I was talking to a couple of friends of mine who are familiar with OpenCV, which got ported to FTC recently. It's not in the main repo, but you can get it. OpenCV is color detection vision technology, so you could use something like that. There's also TensorFlow, which you could, I'm not sure how advanced the TensorFlow that's included in FTC is. I know with normal TensorFlow, you can train it yourself. So you could train basically its object recognition AI to detect 1 versus 4 rings. Or with the OpenCV, you could draw a box around the rings and see how high the box is, 1 or 4, or obviously it doesn't detect it at all, it's 0.
I would definitely recommend doing your own research on this, because there's going to be other methods probably that can also be used. I know that there was some color detection in last year's game that was used and stuff like that. So I think it's really just going to be more about whatever works for your team, what you guys have experience with. You don't necessarily want while it's really awesome to make new advances that your team can use in the future, it does need to start sooner rather than later so that you have time to work everything out, because it's not all going to work out initially the way you want it to.
Absolutely. So now let's actually get into gameplay, and this is where things get interesting for this game. So in the autonomous, so you get certain points for the wobble goal being in the correct target zone. So that implies that A, you have to be able to move the wobble goal. Now, if you plan on doing your end game part, then that means picking it up, right? If you don't plan on doing your end game part, that could be a number of things. That could be pushing it like DozerBot. That could be, grabbing it with little servo hooks. It could end up, it looked like it had a little lip on the side. I don't know if anybody can confirm or deny that. If it does have a little lip on the side, you can move it very similar to how a lot of teams were moving the, I forgot what they were called, but the big loading platforms that you put the Sky Stones on last year.
Oh, yeah.
You could move it very similarly to that with some servos that came down around the lip and dragged. So there are definitely options for moving that. But again, if you want to be able to pick it up, then either maybe grabbing it by the top, although that's difficult. Another thing I can think of would be cradling around the bottom and picking it up, kind of like that.
You could do that with kind of like a forklift situation.
And it wouldn't have to go up very high. The maximum for auto, just off the ground. For endgame, only your wall's height.
Maybe even enough just to support it and push it is the other thing. You might not even need to lift it up.
Well, for auto, no.
But maybe for endgame.
And then shots into any goal, low and specific, or low, mid, high, 3, 6, and 12 points respectively in autonomous. Here's the thing about the shots. So in case, again, you didn't see, your low shot is the only one you're allowed to score yourself. That would require some sort of lift. Not a large lift, but you would need a lift to get the rings into the low. But you can score all 3 at the same time. Asia, I think we have somebody in the waiting room if you could. Okay, awesome. Then the mid and high, which obviously are on different scoring platforms. So this for traditional events. I know for remote events, they'll all be on 1. But on the traditional event, you'll have, one side with you in the middle and then one side with you on top.
Red, blue, red, or blue, red, blue.
You cannot break the plane of the white line at all.
No. it does specifically say that it's very specific. Minor plane breaches that are inconsequential are fine, or something along those lines.
But that's risky. I mean,
very much
I
so.
would not be okay with taking that kind of risk. So you would be better off with making sure you stay behind the line, which in teleop is no problem, right? Hopefully, if your driver and operator know how to communicate, know how to work together, they can talk and make sure, if the operator who's like, shooting the ball is like, go forward, driver needs to be able to say, no, we're on the white line, and the operator needs to be able to respect that. That's one of the things from this year, right? And the coach should be looking out for that too. In auto, however, I know some teams who are going to be planning on doing more advanced programming. Something I want all you programmers to think about is if you're going to have vision targeting. So let's say, there's the colored posts and then there's the colored thing at the top with the white square in the middle. All that could be used for color-based vision targeting easily, right? But if that's something you plan on doing and you plan on having your robot auto line up, you need something that's going to also prevent it from crossing the white line, because with the robot auto lining up, it may try to cross the white line. So potentially some sort of sensor that's looking down, like a line sensor to like a light sensor or a color sensor, to see the line and go, oh, we have gone too far. That way you don't shoot, because you can drive over it while you're lining up, right? If you accidentally drive over it while you're lining up, that's not a penalty. It's only if you shoot while you're there.
Right.
So it would be like a final check for the lineup.
Okay.
And then the power shot.
So for the power shot, it's kind of funky. So you can hit it in autonomous and in endgame. If you hit it during teleop and your human players don't switch it back before autonomous, it doesn't count for any points, even if it gets flipped back. So if it starts endgame flipped, then it's not worth any points, which is a huge waste of 15 points.
Right.
But for autonomous, it's worth 15 points to hit it, and then it would get reset by the human players at the end of autonomous.
But basically the idea is if you hit it during teleop, you get no points for it, because nothing gets reset between teleop and endgame. And it specifically says that only ones that are changed during endgame. It said, what did it say specifically? It said if endgame starts and they're already switched, they get no points.
Right.
So power shots are completely out for teleop, autonomous and endgame only, but you can do both, autonomous and endgame. Power shots, again, from a autonomous perspective, programming, because it's autonomous. You would have to do a lineup. I believe, Rylee, do the power shots have to be shot from behind the line?
I think so. I think everything that's launched has to be from behind the line.
All right, we're gonna have to double check on that, because I didn't think about that till right now. But basically,
but again, go analyze all of this for yourself.
Yes, the power shot has to be behind the line.
Okay. We are analyzing this in our own way, and we're also kind of doing, keep in mind that we only have, 30 minutes for this presentation. Mm-hmm. So because it's so short, we're just going over the general information that we think teams are going to want or need to see. So you're going to want to do all of this for your own team, for yourself, because what we're going over is definitely not everything that's being talked about.
Absolutely. Let's see, what's next? So the power shot does have to be shot inside the launch zone. So for the power shot, I would also recommend potentially some sort of vision lineup, although if you already have preloaded, you can, for autonomous, have no vision and have it be encoder and gyro based. With the small height difference of each scoring area, I would not recommend like a time-based drive, like drive forward for 2 seconds at 50% power or whatever, because you will probably miss most of the time based on your battery voltage. So yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to driver controlled. Basically, the only thing that you can do during driver controlled is shoot rings.
Yeah, that's about it.
Literally. So you can shoot low goal for 2, or you can place low goal for 2 points, shoot mid goal for 4 points, or high goal for 6. You are not allowed to place any rings. Sorry, I'm like trying to write and talk at the same time. It's not working. No rings.
I'm gonna look up the one page.
Can't spell either. No rings on the wobble goals. You are not allowed. That's a penalty. That is GS6.
Yep.
Says no rings on the wobble goal during
the driver control period.
When
it's not
That's the one. And no, you don't want to shoot at the power shot. So you really do need to shoot the rings. So that's pretty simple, driver controlled wise. So we're going to head on to end game.
Now, Rylee, did you read where? So I know the stack of rings is put in to verify the autonomous thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's either 1 or 4 or 0.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that some are in the human player station. They can feed them in through that little cool
Mm-hmm.
tube where they come out and they roll and
Mm-hmm.
they bounce. Something you got to be careful of because they're going to roll and bounce all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But my last question is, where are the rest? Do you remember reading that?
I thought that anything that wasn't on the field or in robots' hands starts behind with the human players.
They could put them in whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think so. Don't quote me on that.
That's something to check.
So end game wise, you can put the wobble goal. There's a couple things you can do with the wobble goal. You can place in the start line.
Yep.
Or outside field. That's the drop zone. You can put, it's 5 points per ring. That's an R, not a P, I'm sorry. 5 points per ring that's placed during endgame and finishes the game on the wall goal. You've got power shots, and that's 15 per. And there's 3.
You don't have to, but that does give extra points at the very end. Now, it can't exit the field before endgame, but during endgame, you can pick it up and bring it outside the field.
That's 20 points versus 5 for just putting it on the start line.
Correct.
Wobble goals are 5 per ring.
And I believe you can put both wobbles outside.
Yes.
So your high scoring teams are going to have both wobbles outside at the end. Like that's like your world championship teams. Every match there's going to be 4 wobble goals all on the outside, probably all filled up with rings.
Now we just had a question asking if you return it to the inside of the field, does it count? So the way that FTC scoring works usually, unless it specifies live scoring with things like the ring, it's static scoring, which basically means that it's scored at the end of the match. However many, even if you hit each of the levers twice, if your human player isn't thinking about it and flips them all back without you paying any attention,
they can flip them back during the
teleop? So they can flip them back if they get hit accidentally. Okay. So I think, but basically, by the way, to Weller.Perry@Lackland ISD, you can't access this this document because your school domain, the @Lackland ISD, won't allow you to view anything that's outside of your domain. So I can't share it with you. I'm sorry.
If you have a personal email, that'd be perfect.
Yes. So sorry, where was I? So basically, if they were to flip it back and you end the match with 0 of them flipped, you get 0 points. So by putting it outside the field, you have to leave it there or it doesn't count for any points at all.
Now, out of curiosity, when you say return it inside the field, what?
I think he means bring it outside the field. He or she means bring it outside the field and then bring it back in to score more stuff.
Okay. Is that what you meant? Did we get that right? Okay. So no, once it's in the end game, if it goes outside the field, it is outside the field.
Yeah.
It is there for good. So you could either, if you're already ahead, you could just do it. But if it's like the last, if y'all are really close, maybe you want to wait till the last second to do it. Not the last second, that'd be bad. But you wait a little while to do it so you can score more points.
Right. But keep in mind, so you get 5 points for every ring on the wobble goal, and then 20 points for putting it outside. So just by placing four rings onto the goal, you've made the equivalent of placing, and you can't place rings on the wobble goal during teleop. So if you think you can place more rings on the wobble goal, then it's going to be worth to put it on the or to put it outside the field. Just think about that timing wise, because it could take a lot of time to put it all the way outside the field. A lot, I mean, and it might not necessarily be worth as many points as just putting it on the start line and loading it with 5, 6, 7 rings. So just keep that in mind. That's something that you're going to want to test in shop and just determine based on how your team does. So that's pretty much, that's the match play. Another question, can you get both wobble goals or you can only get one? I believe you can get both.
Now you can only, it is very explicit in the manual, you are only allowed to hold one at a time.
Right.
So if you're going to get both outside, either you're going to do one, your alliance partner's going to do one, or you're going to be really fast. You're going to do one, you're going to go grab the other one, and then you're going to do that one.
Right.
But you can't grab both and then put them out.
Now you can be lined up with like holding one all the way up already. When endgame starts, as soon as the buzzer goes off, you put it outside the field and go grab another one. Yeah. But just think about how much time, that was a match. Think about how much time that's going to take you. And just kind of keep that in mind, because that's going to be a huge time suck. Just checking our time. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left, give or take, about 5 to 7 minutes left. Keep the questions rolling in, y'all. We are more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have to the best of our abilities. Keep in mind that we saw this 2 hours ago when you guys saw this 2 hours ago.
So my kind of personal, every year I come up with like, what's the dream? What does our ideal match look like? And my personal ideal match looks like starting off, going and shooting all 3 and dragging the wobble goal with me, right? So grab the wobble goal, drag it up, shoot all 3, go to the target zone, drop off the wobble goal. That's pretty much my autonomous that I want to be able to do. Maybe a power shot, but that would require you to intake.
Oh, that is so crooked. So I just want to introduce this concept to everyone in case you guys don't know what it is. This is Need, Want, Dream. Now, Need, Want, Dream is something that our team uses every year. And basically, we define, so auto, driver, controlled, and endgame. We determine what is the basics for each section. So during autonomous, we need to, at the very basics, we need to be able to go park on the launch line, right? It would be really nice to be able to shoot something, and it would be really awesome to be able to move, shoot, and hit a power shot, right? Stuff like that. I just wanted to introduce that concept to everyone because that's something that we use and we find really, really helpful. And this kind of helps us determine what needs to be designed first and what's going to be something that maybe comes a little later. So do we have any additional questions to point out? Any additional rules that need to get pointed out? I can go over kind of some of the odd penalties. So I do want to point out, nope. Okay, new, don't save. Can you detach a mechanism?
FTC does not allow,
no Batman Robin.
Unless something this year has changed, FTC has never allowed that. What were you thinking out of curiosity?
Something that intakes, moves things over and shoots. Batman Robin.
Well, so you can extend up to as big as you want. So, if
but no entanglement.
But no entanglement. So you got to be careful you don't entangle anybody. I did see a video of a team one time that had their robots split into 2 robots that were connected with a big wire, but they ended up entangling a bunch of people. So detaching a mechanism, usually, if that's the thought process you're going with, you are going down the wrong road.
Yeah, usually it's a big no-no.
Is my personal opinion.
But, I mean, I guess technically, yes.
Detaching is against the rules. Detaching intentionally.
So I do want to point out that if you have 2 rings in your robot and you have another ring that's mid-shot, right? and you have another ring that you intake while this is still here, this has not been scored yet, and this still gets intake, then you're intaking here, this counts as 4 rings.
Yeah,
this is a penalty. So if you have just shot and you're like intaking at the same time as you're shooting, until the ring gets scored or like hits, like if it's midair and it hasn't touched anything yet, it still counts as in your possession.
Yeah, you're still controlling it until it touches something else.
I don't necessarily see that being a huge penalty thing, because I think it's going to be really hard for the refs to see when they're watching everything else. But oops, I just did something. But just keep that in mind. So, all right, what next? Plowing is allowed, hurting is not. Same rules as last year. And then just keep in mind that you can't score rings on the wobble goal other than during endgame. And you can't even get anywhere near the opposing alliance's wobble goals. So.
Yep. We've got about 2 minutes left, so I think we would be better off if anybody has any last minute questions than figuring out other stuff to talk about.
Go through, I'm just telling you, go through the game manual on your own, really sit there and analyze it. If it helps you, print out the sections that you want to look at and literally go in and like annotate it. I know that we're going to have a team meeting today and we're going to sit here and literally just analyze everything and figure out what's going on. So that's what I would do. You guys can do whatever you want. It's just my recommendation. What type of shooter mechanism would you recommend for this season?
So the first thing that came to mind for me,
I'm going to pull up this presentation that I did earlier. Now it's foam, so that kind of, you're gonna have to do some testing, but the first thing that came up in my mind is gonna be this flywheel shooter right here in the bottom left, because you're
not that one specifically,
but the type of idea where you have think like a golf ball shooter. Baseball.
No one shoots golf balls.
No one shoots golf balls. Sorry,
baseball
y'all.
Shooter.
Baseball shooter. Think baseball shooter. That one particularly is for 2016 FRC, but that's just the example that I used because it's what pulled up when I Googled it. But these are, it might need a lot of tinkering, but it's going to be pretty effective. And I think it's going to be the best way to actually get a grip on such an odd game piece.
So if any of you are interested, so like I said, Rylee and I have both done FRC for a long time. However, what I'm about to say is before even our time. FRC in 2013 was a Frisbee game where you had to take regular Frisbees and shoot them all the way across the field. Well, obviously, FRC is huge, right? So I would encourage you to potentially consider scaled down versions
game.
Yeah, Frisbee shooters. And you can look up what those looked like, but basically these guys would shoot Frisbees usually using that baseball shooter technique, although sometimes they'd have multiple wheels stacked behind each other to funnel it into the right position. So like on this one, you can see there's a wheel and then a wheel behind it, and then also wheels on the other side. So that type of idea is what I'm going to be pitching to my kids on my team to try to.
What I'm getting ready to show you is an intake, but it's oops, sorry, y'all.
The same idea.
It's literally the same idea.
But it's just the other way.
You'll notice this one in the bottom left here is that multiple wheel stacked and layered and kind of all conjoined. That kind of design is probably going to get you the best grip and the best traction on such a weird game piece, honestly.
Mm-hmm. All right, it is 2:41. So we have another session in 5 minutes over on it's on the schedule. I believe it's on the main Zoom link, and it's just a wrap up.
I will go ahead and send that in this.
Yeah, if you could send that link, Rylee, and we will all be headed over there for the wrap up with Mr. Gabe. So thank you guys for attending. If you have any questions, I think at this point, all of you either have our emails or Mr. Gabe's email, and he knows how to get in touch with us. So if you need anything, whether it's strategy or mechanical help or anything,
There's our Asia just put our Instagram in there.
So you can DM us on there.
You guys are more than welcome to DM us.
You guys need to wrap it up.
If you guys
It's
can see
time.
this is a resources page. I'll probably have the link to that document on there shortly, and also the contact us page. This is our emails that you guys are more than welcome to hit up. We're always happy to help everyone.
All right, thank you guys. We're gonna put the link in the chat.